Hi, I'm Deborah Richardson from Tin Teddy, and today I'm going to show you how to make a decoupage card using some Tin Teddy textures. Let's first of all just have a quick look at what you need. Obviously you're going to need some Tin Teddy textures. Here I've taken the little princess from the Party Princesses texture set, which is available in my store on Etsy. And you can see that I've printed her out onto photographic paper, and I've printed her out 4 times, and I've cheated a little bit, and the 5th print of her I've actually put one of the Tin Teddy velvet papers behind her, and I've just printed her straight onto the picture before I printed it out. You could just print out another copy of the princess and stick it on the paper afterwards. You'll see what I mean as we assemble it. So 4 more princesses on the page. I've also put a little greeting on here. It just says happy birthday there. That's off of the soon to be released Elf CD. It's not available yet, but you'll be able to get these very soon. But you can use any sentiment you like, so don't worry if you haven't got that. So just print out your princesses. The reason I'm using photographic paper, by the way, is simply it gives a nice shiny look and the pictures look nice and crisp. You don't have to use photographic paper, but I do recommend you use a little bit thicker paper for decoupage, not normal photocopy type paper, just something a little bit firmer. A thin white card would also be fine. Okay, we need a pair of scissors to cut them out. These are my embroidery scissors, which I shouldn't really be using for this, but I couldn't find my decoupage scissors anywhere. Decoupage scissors tend to be a lot thinner than this. Basically, you want a smaller pair of scissors as you can find or you've got, and sharp scissors. You need something to stick the decoupage down. Now, you can use these sticky foam pads. These ones came on like a sheet. You can also buy them in a long reel, and you just peel off the backing paper, and it's sticky on both sides. These are great for larger areas. Sticky on both sides. Great for larger areas, and you can cut little bits off for smaller areas. However, I prefer, when working on smaller, finer areas, to use this silicone glue. And this silicone glue, there's a variety of different makes. This is Pinflair, and you just squeeze it into this handy little syringe that comes with it, and you can use this to apply really tiny blobs of silicone glue, and I'll be using that in a minute and show you how to use it. It's nice and easy, don't worry. Now, the trick with decoupage is we're trying to make a flat 2-dimensional image become more 3D. So we have to start thinking, what do we need to layer over the top to make her stick out? Well, I think the first thing to do would probably be put every single piece of the girl on the next layer, except for her ponytail. I don't know if you can see at the back here, her hair is going down her back. So that's like the furthest back part of the image. If this was a real 3D person standing there, that would be the piece of her that would be furthest away, would be that hair going down her back. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut round one of my images, completely around her, everything bar that hair. Scissors. So I just begin to cut. Now, it's a very good idea when you're doing decoupage, if you've not done this before. I'm also going to mind these little lacy bits at the bottom as well, because they can be a pain to cut out. If you've never done decoupage before, I strongly recommend that you start off with simple bold shapes, which is why these cartoon type images are quite good for this. If you're more experienced, you can move on to the more intricate images. Obviously, I'm going to assume that you will take a little bit more time over this than I am, as I'm doing it to show you, and cut out really nicely. Okay, so I've just got to the bit where her hair is, and I'm just going to cut off that hair, completely cutting around her and ignoring that hair that's going to be right in the background. One good thing with decoupage is you can cheat quite a bit. So if there's some fiddly little pokey out bits like fingers and things that you don't really fancy having to cut out, remember that only the topmost layer of any detail is the piece that shows. So on lower down layers, if you're a little bit cheating and just chop bits off, it's not really going to matter. I'm also cutting her little wandy thing off as well. Again, it would be almost impossible to cut out, being a little stick. We'll solve that at the end, don't worry about it. Okay, so I'm nearly, whoops daisy. So obviously you're going to take a lot more time over this. I'm just chopping it out. There we go. So I've cut out a little princess, and you can see from the card left over where the piece of hair is. Just sorry, I put my finger on it. There's the bit of hair I didn't cut out. So that's going to go on top of my previous image. Now, because this is quite a big layer, I'm going to do it using the sticky pads to show you how I use those. So here's the sticky pad. Now I can use one big sticky pad, if I can just pick the edge off, on the lower part of her skirt. So I'm just going to stick that slap bang on there. A couple more sticky pads. You can get these in different sizes. Sorry. And you can also buy them in a big reel. I think it's actually some form of insulation tape. Stick that on where her head is. I think I'm just going to put one more thin strip in the middle of her body. There we go. So I've stuck 3 little sticky pads on the base, and now I'm going to put the dolly on the top. I'm just going to give her a little bit of a bend. I'm just bending her, curving her around slightly. You see what I'm doing? I'm just giving her a curve. This just makes her sit a little bit nicer. You see she's got a little slight curve on her now. She'll just sit a little bit nicer on the backing paper. And now the fiddly bit, when we have to position her on, lining her up with the picture underneath. Okay, now for the next image, we again need to decide which parts of the doll are further back than other parts. So if I have a good look at the image, well, I think her head is probably going to be pretty much in the foreground, and so is her left arm. Her right arm appears to be slightly further back, and her neck is further back. So I think this time I'm going to basically cut out her dress, pretty much everything except for her arm here, which appears near the back, and her neck. The dolly, I've cut out her little head, obviously minus that ponytail that we were missing before, and I've cut out her dress and just one arm, and obviously I've not included the arm that's further back. That's that arm. Now, rather embarrassingly, my silicone glue has gunked up in the syringe, so I can't use the syringe, but I'm going to do what good crafters do and improvise and use an unbent paper clip and the tube. You might have noticed when I put the layers on using the sticky pads, one of the disadvantages of these was when you put the layer down, you have to get it right first time because these are very sticky. There isn't really any room for wiggling around. So silicone gel has a big advantage in that it's much easier to reposition. So I'm going to use some of that now to show you. I'm just going to again just curve her over a little bit, just bend the dress over a little bit, so a little bit of a curve on it. I'll do the same with the head. This just helps the images sit a little bit better on the page. Now I'm going to get some of this silicone gel on my blob. And put it on my image. Oh, this is nice and messy. Trust me, it's much nicer if you use the little applicator. Da-de-da-de-da. Put some blobs of this on. There we go. And another little blob in the middle. There we are. Hope you can see that clear enough on the camera. Okay, so we've now added some blobs of silicone gel, and again I'm just going to lower the pieces of doll onto the image. We'll just drop her head into place. I'm just going to push it down a little bit. Don't squash it right down or you won't get any 3 dimensions to it. You're just gently lowering it into place. So the big advantage of using the silicone gel is you can reposition, you can wiggle around until you're quite happy that it's all lined up and looking good. Now, I don't know if you can see again on a webcam, but it's looking quite three-dimensional now. And again, we need to think about what are we putting on for the next layer. I think actually we're only going to need one more of these pictures, and we'll have a spare one, but sometimes you can work it out a bit in advance, sometimes you need to work it out as you go along. So what's the very uppermost part of this image? Well, I would say her arm here, which obviously must be in front of her dress and everything. So I'd say the whole of that arm, and probably her hair, because it seems to be going, like she's got like little bangs that go down her face. Okay, so I have her hair and her arm, and again I'm going to just use a few blobs of my silicone gel quite carefully. This is where I could really do with that syringe, couldn't I? Oh dear. Best laid plans, eh? You also can get it in, just comes in a tube with quite a thin nozzle, so you can apply it. You don't actually have to have a syringe, but the syringe is nice for if you do a lot of delicate decoupage. It's definitely worth getting if you're doing it. They're not very expensive. Okay, and I'm just going to put a couple of blobs up here on her hair. You might find it easier, by the way, to let one layer dry before you do a next layer. As you can see, I'm just making the layer below move, but I'm in a hurry because I'm making a video. There we go. And again, we're just going to put these little layers on. Now, you might want to use tweezers for this. So we're just going to lay her arm in place. I'm just going to push it down against the backing paper at the top, but let it stick up more near the bottom, so her arm is like moving a little way away from her body. And again with the hair, I'm just going to, before I put the hair on, I'm just going to put a little bit of a bend, a little bit of a curve around the hair so it sits a little bit more neatly on her head. Just bend it a little bit. That's my tweezers. And I'm just going to add a very small blob of silicone gel, and whoops daisy, if I can hang on to it, put it on the back here. There we go. And I'm just going to apply a small purple blingy flower. There we go. I'm just going to stick that on. That's just something out of my oddments box, and you see it's a bit. Okay, and now I'm going to stick her onto my little card, and I'm going to do that using the sticky foam pads. So I'm just going to put 1, 2, 3, 4. Do feel free when you're making your decoupage, I say, to use more or less layers. You can do a very simple decoupage that's really just a picture with just a couple of small features stuck on and made 3D, or you can go for lots and lots of layers and make a really quite complex design. There we go, so I've just stuck that on there. And the final thing was that little greeting I had, if you remember. You could add a peel off, you could add handwritten sentiment, you could add a lot more decoration. You could, for example, if you wanted, add some nice little bits of glitter, or some glitter glue, or some shiny glue. And a lot of people do like to cover their decoupage with a gloss varnish all over. Go, and we're just going to stick happy birthday up here above her head. And now, right in the light, we have a really quite three-dimensional picture. And because I printed this on photo paper, oops daisy, push her head into place, because I printed this onto photo paper, it's got quite a nice shimmer to it already. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this short tutorial. For more information, tutorials, and of course to be able to buy my Tinteddy graphics and clip art, please visit www.tinteddy.com.